Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now I'm going to share the screen. Everybody be quiet, okay?
Hello.
Yes, is this screen visible to everyone? Impacts of the Indian
Yes,
Forest
ma'am.
Yes,
Act.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Now
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
going. Okay, now I'm going to play the video. Okay, and do not panic if you're not able to hear something or if you don't understand anything. The video will be shared to you and you can watch the video again. Okay.
Did you know that the British, with the help of a German expert, Dietrich Brandis, formulated the Indian Forest Act of 1865 to control the use of forests by local people? After the act, most of the basic means of livelihood of the forest-dwelling tribes were banned by the British. Let's see what happened. As we know, the forest tribes were largely dependent on the forest for their livelihoods. Villagers thought a good forest was one that provided them with their daily needs such as fuel, fodder, and leaves. However, the British thought differently. They felt a good forest was one that provided timber for building ships and railways. For this purpose, the British passed the Indian Forest Act, which completely devastated the lives of villagers. The daily practices of villagers, such as cutting wood, grazing cattle, collecting fruits and roots, and fishing, were banned and made illegal. Forest-dwelling tribes largely depended on hunting small animals like deer, rabbit, and partridge for food. The British also imposed a ban on the hunting of small animals. However, they encouraged the sport of hunting of wild and dangerous animals like the elephant, lion, and tiger by giving rewards. In fact, if anyone was caught hunting illegally, they were severely punished for poaching. Even shifting cultivation, which had been practiced for several generations by the forest tribes, was banned. Shifting, or swidden cultivation, was an agricultural system in which plots of the forest are cultivated in rotation. Such plots are cultivated for a couple of years and then abandoned for the forest to grow back. The forest tribes largely depended on it. However, the British regarded this practice as harmful to the forests. They felt the land became useless for growing timber, led to forest fires, and also resulted in soil erosion. Furthermore, it was difficult for the government to calculate taxes. Thus, the British banned shifting cultivation. The Indian Forest Act snatched away the means of livelihood of many of the nomadic and pastoral tribes. They were left with only two options: either give in and change their occupation, or take the stronger path and rebel. Some of them changed their occupation and were forced to work in tea and coffee plantations, mines, and factories at low wages, bad working conditions, and under strict government supervision. A few others stood up against the tyranny of the British, which led to many rebellions in the forests of India. While the Indian Forest Act was passed as a boon to the British, it proved to be a bane for the forest dwellers.
Okay. So, everyone with me here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So here we did a recap of what we have covered so far and the impact of the Indian Forest Acts on the local tribals and the beginning of the new trades and new employments. So now children, here the last section of the second section on rise of commercial forestry. I guess we covered a little bit of this part also yesterday. New trades and occupations started in forest products not only in India but the entire world. For example, the Munduruku people of Brazil, Amazon, who were cultivators of manioc or cassava, began collecting latex from wild rubber trees for supplying to traders and became completely dependent on traders. Which means whatever was their traditional occupation of shifting cultivation, they stopped that and they only acquired and they started a new occupation which was favorable for them to manage their own household. Here I can see Om Jagtap, Aviral, Shirgupe, Jay, Nile, and Raghav. Their mic is not mute. Please don't create any disturbance by keeping your mic on. Jay and Raghav, please mute your mic. Okay. Also, in India, the trade in customary forest products like hides, horns, silks, ivory, bamboo products, however, after the advent of the British, was now completely regulated by the government. You already know, children, that before this also in India, the tribals...
Ma'am,
Yes, who's this?
ma'am, what is mean by manioc?
Manioc is cassava. Who's that?
Ma'am, I, Dhaval.
Dhaval, beta, you already know, you know sabudana. Have you seen the sabudana? Yeah, it's actually a
Yes,
kind
ma'am.
of a root. It's mainly grown in tropical areas, in tropical rainforest areas in Africa, and even in South India also. Okay, and it is a kind of a root. It is also known as cassava. So they used to practice the cultivation of manioc. These tribals in Amazon basin, even Amazon basin is also over there. Also, you have dense rainforest, evergreen forests over there also. So these are the main areas where cassava is grown, nowhere else in the world. Okay, so here they stopped this practice of growing cassava or manioc, and they began collecting latex from wild rubber trees. So why was latex used for? For making few things. You utilize rubber for so many things. So they used to supply it to the trader. So they completely stopped their old occupation and they started doing whatever will fulfill their own needs for money, for occupation. Okay, similarly in India, the practice of trade by the forest dwellers was already there. They used to trade in forest products even during the time of Mughals, even during the time of Delhi Sultanate also. But then even after, what happened after the coming of the British was that they completely took over the control of the forest and the forest management and even whatever products these forest dwellers were taking from there. Which means they were only allowed in the forests which were considered as village forest or protected forest, but they were completely prohibited to enter into the reserved forest, as I have already explained to you. After which act? After the act of 1878. Then also there was an impact on the lives of the communities which were nomadic. You know who are nomadic people? What do you understand by nomadic tribes? Who will tell me? Advait, can you tell me? Nilay, you tell me who are nomadic people? Yes, Nilay. Who are nomadic people?
Yes, ma'am.
Nomadic tribes कौन से होते हैं?
Ma'am, the tribes which move from one place to another, they don't stay on
In
one
search
place.
of food and water. So even in forest areas, there were some tribes which were nomadic. Okay, and also they are their livelihood is mainly based on the forest products. So when we talk about nomadic tribes, they also have their animals with them, domesticated animals. So these domesticated animals, they do grazing in the forest areas. What happens is, after the regulations by the British, let me tell you children, grazing was completely prohibited. Grazing means the animals were not allowed to enter the forest and do grazing. So this led to thousands and millions of sheep and the flock of various domesticated animals died because of these new regulations. which were imposed in the 19th century after the 1878 Act. Okay, and it completely changed the lives of the nomadic tribes. They had to they had to consider other occupations in other areas, even though their life was completely different before this. For centuries they were leading a life of nomadic people, but now they had to settle down because people who were nomadic, the Britishers considered them as criminal. Okay, so they had to leave the occupation, their own customary nomadic life, and they had to settle down. They forced the nomadic tribes to settle down. Okay, so that is why they impose these criminal acts and many other acts they introduced to manage the forest and control the tribes in India. Okay, also the well-being of people was at stake, as these tribals worked at very low wages and lived in inhumane working conditions, as you have seen in the video. They were also not allowed to go back to their villages. So now children, I will quickly share another screen with you. I'm going to read 2 excerpts of the case studies. There are 2 case studies mentioned in your book also, on the Baigas of Central India and of the Putumayo in the Amazon basin. So everybody, you can see this your textbook page here on the screen. Is it visible to everyone? Brian, you can answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Baigas are a forest
ma'am.
community of Central India. In 1892, after their shifting cultivation was completely stopped, they petitioned to the government. So children, this is a excerpt from a book in the 19th century. Let me read it out for you. Here. We daily starve, having had no food grain in our possession. The only wealth we possess is our axe. We have no clothes to cover our body with, but we pass cold nights by the fireside. We are now dying for want of food. We cannot go elsewhere. What fault have we done that the government does not take care of us? Prisoners are supplied with ample food in jail. A cultivator of the grass is not deprived of his holding, but the government does not give us our right who have lived here for generations past. So this is an excerpt from Ramachandra Guha and Madhav Gadgil's book, This Fissured Land, An Ecological History of India. So this explains what was the condition of people and how their lives were changing after the new forest acts were introduced in India by the Europeans. Okay, now this is another excerpt of the rubber extraction in Putumayo. I hear somebody's mic. Raghav, Jay and Arya More, please switch off your mic. Arya More, Jay and Raghav. Yes. So now everywhere in the world, conditions of work in plantations was horrific. The extraction of rubber in Putumayo region of the Amazon by the Peruvian Rubber Company with British and Peruvian interests was dependent on the forced labor of the local Indians called Hututos. From 1900 to 1912, this is the early 20th century, the Putumayo output of 4,000 tons of rubber was associated with a decrease of some 30,000 among the Indian population due to torture, disease, and flight. A letter by an employee of a rubber company describes how the rubber was collected. The manager summoned hundreds of Indians to the station. Here we are talking about the natives of the Amazon basin. He grasped his carbine and match and began the slaughter of these defenseless Indians, which means he shot them, okay, leaving the ground covered with 150 corpses. Corpses means bodies, okay. Among them were men, women, and children. So these were the tribal natives of the Amazon forests. Bathed in blood and appealing for mercy, the survivors were heaped with the dead and burned to death. while the manager shouted, "I want to exterminate all the Indians who do not obey my orders about the rubber that I require them to bring in." Exterminate का मतलब होता है बेटा terminate करना, उनको खत्म कर देना. जैसे कि हम अपने घर में pests होते हैं, उनको terminate करते हैं, हम उनको exterminate करते हैं, हम उनको खत्म करते हैं. So this was the way these people were treated by the colonialists. Okay, this again is from the book called Colonialism and Culture, as you can see in this chapter. So these two case studies give you an idea what was the condition of the tribals during those times. So now I'll come back to the same screen. This brings us to the end of the second section of the lesson 4, Forest Society and Colonialism. The second section of Rise of Commercial Forestry is completed now, children. Now we still have time, around 8 minutes. I will now show you another video. Okay, it is the introduction to the third section of this lesson, which is the rebellion in the forest. अभी आपके साथ इतना अत्याचार होगा तो आप उस पर रिबेल करेंगे. Similarly, the tribals in these areas where the Europeans acquired the colonies and they were exploiting the forest dwellers, many rebellions happened. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a introductory video. Everybody with me here? Yes? Are you all there with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now I'm going
Yes,
to
ma'am.
share
Yes,
another
ma'am.
screen, okay? Is this screen visible with the history book? Yeah? With a lantern and a cup of coffee?
Yes,
Can you
Yes,
see that?
ma'am.
Okay,
Yes,
so now I'm
ma'am.
playing
Yes,
this video.
ma'am.
Okay, this is the introduction to the rebellion in the forest.
In this module, you will learn about the rebellions in the forests against the British. Did these things, a mango bough, chilies, a lump of earth and arrows, mean anything to you? Perhaps not. However, to the people of Bastar during the year 1910, these acted as secret.
Okay, who will tell me where is Bastar located? Now the location is also visible on the map here. Where is this?
Telangana. Telangana.
Wrong, wrong. Which state is it? Is this mentioned here?
Chhattisgarh.
Chhattisgarh. Yes, Bastar is the district of Bastar is located in the state of present day Chhattisgarh. Okay.
Symbols inviting villagers to rebel against the British. There were many rebellions against the British which are remembered even till today. The rebellion in the forests of Bastar in 1910 was one such. Let's learn a little more about Bastar and the people who lived there. Bastar is located in the southernmost part of Chhattisgarh and shares its borders with Andhra Pradesh, Orissa and Maharashtra. A number of different communities live in Bastar and speak different languages, but they all have common customs and beliefs. The people of Bastar believe that land is a gift from Mother Earth to humans, and that humans should respect this gift. They look after their forests with great affection and care. An annual big hunt of a pargana or a cluster of villages is held, where the headmen of the villages discuss issues related to the forests. However, under the colonial rule, the people of Bastar were exploited for a long time. They were forced to pay higher land rents, work for free, and provide free goods to government officials. They suffered even more due to the famines that hit Bastar in 1899 to 1900 and again in 1907 to 1908. The proposal of the government in 1905.
So you can see, children, especially by the end of the 19th century is the main period when these rebellions was happening. Why so? Can anybody tell me why is it that by the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, more tribal rebellions were there? What was the reason?
At that time, many tribals got agitated or got aware that this is wrong and this
Yes,
is
I
going
agree
against
that
it.
tribals were agitated, but why, especially in the end of the 19th century, the rebellions began? Anybody has any guess? Can you guess?
And the British must have enforced new laws, some new hard laws.
Yes, it's mainly because of the implementation of the new forest laws and the amendment, the new amendment which was put to practice in the year 1878. After that, this completely agitated the tribals. All these things were very new to them, and the forests were their home. So they felt that as if the Britishers were snatching away their home. So that is the reason why most of the tribal rebellions have happened by the end of the 19th century and in the beginning of the 20th century, as it is happened in Bastar also.
To reserve 2/3 of the forest land, stop shifting cultivation, hunting and collection of forest produce was the last straw for the people of Bastar.
These were the reasons.
The initiative of rebelling against the British was taken by the Durwas of the Kangar forest, which was the first forest to be reserved. Households in every village supported the rebellion by bearing its expense. One prominent name associated with these rebellions is that of Gundadur, who was a rebel leader from a village named Netanar. A mass movement of destruction in the form of looting, burning of bazaars, schools and police stations, and the houses of officials and traders spread throughout Bastar. Even though the British were able to suppress the rebellion, it took them 3 months to bring the situation totally under control. The rebellion in Bastar is worth remembering, as it was a major victory for all Indians. The work on forest reservation was temporarily suspended and the area to be reserved was reduced to half of the original proposed. Even today, the people of Bastar proudly recall and recreate the story of the successful rebellion in Bastar of 1910 and that of Gundadur, who became a legendary hero. You have now reached the end of the module on rebellion in the forests. In this module, you learnt about the rebellion that arose in the forests of Bastar in 1910. The people of Bastar were exploited to pay higher land rents, work for free, and provide free goods to government officials. The initiative for rebelling against the British was taken by the Durwas of the Kangar forest. One prominent name associated with these rebellions is that of Gundadur, who was a rebel leader from a village named Netanar. The British had to suspend the work of forest reservation and reduce the area to be reserved to half of the original proposed.
Okay, children, so this brings us to the introduction of the third section of this lesson, that is the rebellions in the forests. Now I will again come back to the slide here. We'll do a quick recap of what we have covered so far. We have completed the first section, that is why deforestation happened in India after the advent of the British. The second section covers the introduction of the rise of commercial forestry. How were the lives of people affected? We have completed that also. How did the forest rules affect cultivation, especially the Sweden which is also known as shifting cultivation or Sweden agriculture. Who could hunt? In this particular sections, we learned how the British did not allow, they completely prohibited the tribals and the villagers to hunt for their own sustenance. And on the other hand, they began hunting as a sport for the Britishers, and which led to increase in the rise of the scale of hunting, led to an extinction of many species of the wild animals during that time. And it was much later that many ecologists and scientists, they realized the consequence of disturbing the ecosystem in the forest because of this large scale killings of the large animals. Also, in the last section of the second section, we covered new trades, employments, and services. We also have seen 2 case studies on the rubber extraction in the Putumayo of Amazon basin. What was the conditions of the workers were there, and also in India we have we have read about the case study of the horrific condition of the Baiga community in central India, and how devastated their lives were because of this new system of forest management introduced by the British. So now I will read us, as we have already started with the introduction of the rebellion. All this led to the rebellion by the various tribes all across the world, and India was no such exception here. So now I'll quickly share the screen and read one more case study for you. Okay, is the screen visible to you? Yes, anyone can answer?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am.
Yes.
So now I will come, this is the Bastar district, the map of the Bastar district visible in your book also. Bastar in 2000, in 1947, Bastar kingdom was merged with the Kanker kingdom and became Bastar district in Madhya Pradesh. At that time, it was a part of Madhya Pradesh, but currently it is a part of Chhattisgarh. In 1998, it was divided again into further three districts, Kanker, Bastar, and Dantewada. In 2001, these became a part of Chhattisgarh. The 1910 rebellion first started in the Kanker forest area, encircled as you can see in the map here. Okay, so it began especially in this area, and then it spread to the other areas in other parts of the Chhattisgarh state. Here in this picture, you can see army camp in Bastar in 1910 when the rebellion started. Okay, this photograph of an army camp was taken in Bastar in 1910 when the army moved with tents, cooks, and soldiers. Here a sepoy is guarding the camp again against rebels. Okay, now I will cover this much only. If you have any questions, you can ask me regarding the first and second section, or if you have any queries related to whatever introduction of the third section we have covered. Anybody has any questions? Because we're about to finish this class.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Then I'll quickly read out the second case study. Here, source E. Let's look at this. Bhondia collected 400 men, sacrificed a number of goats, and started off to intercept the Diwan who was expected to return from the direction of Bijapur. Let's listen to this story. This mob started, Bhondia was a tribe, okay? The mob means large number of people together. This mob started on the 10th February, burned the Marenga school, the police post, lines, and pound at Keslur and the school at Tokapur Rajur. Detached a contingent to burn Karanji school and captured a head constable and 4 constables of the State Reserve Police who had been sent out to escort the Diwan and bring him in. So here, who's the Diwan? He's a kind of a middleman for the British. So he's the person who's responsible for managing the area. So now the mob was very angry and they had planned this attack on the Diwan, and they have burned so many schools here. The mob did not maltreat the guards seriously, but eased them off their weapons and let them go. one party of rebels under Bhondia Maji went off to the Kuer River to block the passage there in case the Diwan left the main road. The rest went on to Dilmili to stop the main road from Bijapur. Buddhu Maji and Harchand Nayak led the main body. So here this gives you one example of how the attack was planned and on the Diwan by the tribal rebel. So this brings us to the end of this lecture, children. We will continue on, we have next class on next Friday. Yes? And on Sunday, we will have our test. So if you have any queries, you can ask me now. Anybody has any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm going to end this meeting
No,
here. We will meet on next Friday. If you have any questions regarding whatever we have covered, you can ask me. And Sunday, next Sunday, we have a test on Google Classrooms. I will be adding all of you, all those who have not joined the Google Classroom, please do, because earlier I had added a few students, and all of you please get added into the Google Classroom so that I can conduct the test on next Sunday. And the timing will be same from 2 p.m. to 2:40 p.m. Okay? All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'm ending.
Bye, ma'am.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye, ma'am.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome.